comme on rencontre des personnes. C'est aujourd'hui une chance et un honneur de recevoir Fran Lebowitz à l'Institut MK2 à Paris. Je la remercie infiniment d'être avec nous ce soir. Je voudrais aussi remercier son agent Steven Barclay, qui représente tant d'écrivains merveilleux, de nous avoir proposé d'organiser cette rencontre à Paris, de nous avoir fait confiance. Merci à toutes les équipes MK2, celles de l'Institut, Joséphine Dumoulin et Gabriel Donc notamment, mais aussi à Vincent Desormeaux et les équipes du MK2 Bibliothèque d'avoir préparé cette rencontre avec tant de soin. Le public est au rendez-vous et c'est un vrai plaisir. Cette rencontre exceptionnelle sera conduite par Nicolas Saada, que je remercie d'avoir accepté d'entrer dans la cadence verbale et joyeuse de notre invité. Nicolas Saada est scénariste et réalisateur. Il est l'auteur de 2 longs métrages, Espion et Taj Mahal. La parole est maintenant à nos invités. Je vous remercie d'accueillir Fran Lebowitz et Nicolas Saada.
So you've been traveling in Europe for the past week or so? And what does it feel like to be at this very moment in Europe when we're just on the brink of something that could go dire, as they say?
You don't feel it's dire enough?
It is.
It's pretty dire now.
It is.
And yes, we know it will get worse, because everything does. What is the question?
How does it...
I am opposed to the invasion of Ukraine. Okay. In case you were wondering which side I was on, I'm on the right side with everyone but one person.
How does it feel to... when was the last time you were in Europe? When was the last time you traveled in Europe?
You know, truthfully, I don't remember. I really don't remember the last time. I don't remember the last time I was in Paris. I think right before I came here, I was in Stockholm. I was only there one time. I went with Toni Morrison when she won the Nobel Prize. So that turned out to be 93 or something. When I checked in the hotel, they said, "Oh, you were here before." So it was a while ago. I said, "Yes." It was 93. The kid says, "I wasn't born then." I said, "That's okay, we're gonna come to see you." And he said, "Did you enjoy it?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, we'll be good to now too." I said, "Yes, but I'm sure I won't be riding around in a car with a flag on it. You know, there won't be cheering crowds in the street, there won't be a stamp with my photograph on it." So, for not winning the Nobel Prize, it was good.
And what do you feel when you see this crowded, packed house in Paris for that discussion?
Is this not the usual? No. You know what? I'm not that familiar with crowds in Paris. I did just say to my agent, the seats are so big in the movie theater here. It looks half empty to me. In New York, you'd be on top of each other, fighting over the seats. So it seems very serene.
And there's no popcorn tonight.
You know what? I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
There's no popcorn tonight.
There's no popcorn?
No, obviously no.
Popcorn after.
I was wondering,
Here's a treat.
the French title of your book is "Read Before You Think, and Think Before You Read," which is a quote from the original book. I mean, books are very important in your life. Books are at the core of your life. You cannot live with books. You once said that books was as close as possible to a person.
A book is the closest thing to a human being. It's true. And, you know, some people make human beings, and some people make books. Books are better than human beings. And better for the environment.
Do you read? I heard that you were reading all day.
It's hard to hear you, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I heard you read, of course you read every day, and you start in the morning with non-fiction, and then you read fiction. Is that the way?
I never read fiction in the morning. I never have.
Why?
I don't know. It must not appeal to me. To me, first of all, until Donald Trump was president, I read never a political book, because when he was a president, like everyone else in the United States, I was in such an obsessive rage. I read every book saying, "No, he's worse than you think." And so that I guess I have to start my day with rage. Whereas with fiction is more contemplative, and I'm not that acute in the morning. And when I say morning, I mean like noon.
What's the last book you've been reading lately?
The last book I've been reading that I like. Okay, because I never say books I don't like. I don't, because I'm not an assassin. I know people think I am, but there's one thing I've always known. It is just as hard to write a bad book as a good book. The only difference is talent. So that is a difference for sure, but the labor is the same. So I don't do that. The last book the most recent book, not the, because I read a lot of old books, but the last book I read that's the most recent book, recently published, that I would really recommend is Colson Whitehead's new novel. It's called Harlem Shuffle. It's really good.
Okay. And you mentioned a list of books you recommended. There was the online list. I know that you don't own any machines, but there was an online list of the books you recommended. And in that list there were the stories of John Cheever.
I love him. Is he probably not known here? And he's, I don't know when it was because I've been flying every day for the last 8 months, but I was at a university in California speaking to a class, a writer's class. They were like, I don't know, 12 kids. And they asked me questions, and I recommended John Cheever. Not a single one of these kids had ever heard of John Cheever. I was really upset by this. And John Cheever is probably mostly out of print, except he's in the Library of America, and I cannot recommend him strongly enough. He's a great writer, a very important American writer. He was never, he was, I think, maybe a little older than Updike. He was never as popular as Updike because he was a billion times better than Updike, so naturally Updike was more successful. And people always compared the two of them, which was ridiculous in my opinion. He was a much better writer. I cannot recommend. He also wrote, actually, now I think of it, several stories set in Paris. You know, so that maybe he'd be a little more popular here. Everyone should read him. He's a really important American writer.
I don't know what you think of the short story as a form, but I think it's a pure American form. And
Chekhov, pretty good.
Yeah, Chekhov, but
not bad. We don't like Chekhov.
I agree, but
right? Are we banning Russian writers? I mean, I'm certain Chekhov would be banning Putin, so I'm not worried.
But there's a real tradition of short story in America, and of course Cheever is one of the masters. Is it a form that you like?
I love. It's one of my. I love short stories. A lot of people don't like them. I don't know why. You know, it's actually. It's also considered to be a lesser form than the novel. It is harder to write a short story. I mean, I don't write short stories, but I am telling you that I know it's harder to write a short story. So it's one of my favorite forms. Cheever wrote several very good novels too, by the way. It's a much harder form, and it has, to me, a lot more kind of electricity in it. You know, and there are very good American short story writers. Even now, when there are almost no good American writers.
Yeah, some like Lydia Davis is one of
very
the short
good
story writers.
Deborah Eisenberg, come on, great. My favorite, probably short story writer of the last 100 years, not that I'm quite that old, was Mavis Gallant, who lived in Paris, but she was Canadian, so, French-Canadian, which I know you think is not French, but so I would really recommend Mavis Gallant. She's a great writer. Mavis Gallant should have won the Nobel Prize for sure. You know, and when Alice Munro won it, who's also a Canadian short story writer, I don't know Alice Munro, but I said to a friend of mine who does, and I think Mavis Gallant's still alive when Alice Munro won it, and I said, that's outrageous. You know, Mavis Gallant should have won way before Alice Munro, and this friend of mine said, and Alice Munro would agree with you, but she took it anyway.
I think Hitchcock once said that the closest thing to a movie would be a short story. How did you get in? I mean, how did you discover a culture? I mean, you grew up in New Jersey in a place which
I know it's hard to imagine someone in New Jersey would discover culture. But if you grew up in New Jersey, you saw This Isn't Out. Hey, there's this stuff in the library. I would think really is how I discovered the world, because I live in a small town. It was a very nice town. I know that this is not possible for a writer, but I had a happy childhood. It scarred me. One thing about a happy childhood is that it does not prepare you for adulthood. It's better to have an unhappy childhood, so you're more prepared for adulthood, which is all unhappy. So, but there was a very nice library, and my parents didn't have money to buy books, so I would go to the library every week. And I specifically actually loved that library still, the building. And they had two sections, a children's section, where you had a pink library card. People who are young don't know what a library card is. It was an actual card, which is made out of cardboard, which, look it up. And the adult section had blue cards. So I had read at a certain point other children's books. It was not a giant library. So I asked my mother, can I use your card? I go to the library, and I took out a book of short stories by John O'Hara, another writer I would really recommend to people. He wrote like 400 short stories, fantastic, and also many very good novels. But he was considered to be a kind of, I don't know what the word would be, risque writer. He was incredibly popular because of that, not because of how good he was. And I was so young that I remember the adult section of the library, the counter was high, and I remember having to stand on my toes to put the book on the counter, and the librarian looked down at me in every possible meaning of the word look down, and said, "This must be for your mother, dear, right?" And I said, "No, it's for me." She said, "Oh no, this is not for you." I said, "Oh yeah, it's for me." She said, "No, you cannot read this." Now, I was so young, I thought she meant I would be unable to read it. So I said very proudly, "No, I'm a very good reader. I can read this." She said, "No, you can't." She said, "I don't think your mother would want you to read this." I didn't know what she meant. So it's very interesting to me that the first time I ever heard that a book would be bad for you was from a librarian. So she said, "Well, let's just call your mother and ask her." I said, "Okay." So she called my mother. My mother said yes. After that, my mother could not walk to the library. She was glared at by the librarians. So, to me, I don't know about here, but I would say the last 20 years, at least in the United States, the ideas that people have about reading are so upsetting to me. People read books and write books by saying, "I didn't see myself in this book. I need to see myself in this book. There was no one like me in this book." And this, I hate to say this because I don't know about here, but in America she's like a goddess. Oprah Winfrey taught people to read this way. Oprah Winfrey do you know who she is here? I don't know.
I think people know.
So she had this massively popular television show for 2,000 years, and she was revered in the country. And she talked about books. She sold zillions of books. She was a boon to the publishing industry. And that was a very good thing, but when she talked about the books, she always talked about them that way. And she taught America to read in this really wrong way, which is, like, I was stunned by this. Someone would say, "Well, did you see yourself in this book?" I said, "A book is not a mirror. A book is a window." I'm sure children don't read this now, but when I was a little kid, it was very popular for little girls to read a book called Heidi. It's about a little girl in the Alps. And I love this book. All children love this book. I never thought, why don't I live in the Swiss Alps? Or I can't understand this book because I don't live in the Swiss Alps. I mean, this is a terrible way to read. And the whole country trees, of course, as you know, in that direction.
Well, I think what you mentioned is true to every form of art today. The art is being like summoned to talk about society, where art should be escapism, shouldn't be a reflection.
It's
of
supposed
society.
to make your world bigger, not smaller. Okay? The smallest part of your world is you, whether you think it's so or not. And certainly the smallest part of my world is you. So I don't want to read about you. Guess what? And so the kind of writing I really don't like, now that you asked, is autofiction. I mean, because I don't care. And also because mostly what it's about is emotion. And I have bad news for people. There's only a few human emotions, everyone has them. And they're all the same. And truthfully, I don't even want to feel my emotions, let alone yours. So that's not the interesting thing to me about other people. I know they have emotions. I know what they are, despite what people think. I am also a person. And, I know you're sad, you're mad, you're angry, you're happy, I get it. But books should be, to me, less about your, emotions and more about thinking. So there are fewer books about thinking, of course, and people don't even want to read them. And when people tell you, this is great, this guy, he's just like me. I said, you know what? Most guys are just like you. I have bad news for you.
Well, maybe because the contemporary, I mean, today's discussion is all about content against style. So if the subject is relevant, no matter, they don't care about the style. It's the subject that matters.
But the style is the writing, okay? The subject is nothing, really. I mean, I can't think of who it was. It might have been Chekhov, I could be wrong, where he said, I could look out the window and see a soldier walk by and write a story. And that is true of Chekhov, and it's not true of you. And especially if you're the soldier. So don't write it. To me, and also, but of course, there's now, I don't know about here, you know, if you are a woman, you can't write a book from the point of view of a man. If you're a man, you certainly can't write the point of view of a woman. That's out of the question. You also can't say whether or not you're a man or a woman because there's no such thing. So you cannot write a book from the point of view of someone of another race, another religion, another. That is what writing is. You know, I mean, I don't know what they think writing is. You know, it's, if you're an actor, do they think that the person playing a pirate's a pirate? You know, I mean, sometimes they're a pirate, but basically they're not a pirate. So to me, here's really what we have now. There is too much democracy in art and not enough in society. So as there's less and less democracy in society, there's more and more democracy in the culture. You know, so, and I think these things are connected. I really do. You know, I think we want more democracy in society, which I do, whether you do or not. I want less democracy in culture. Guess what? Not everyone should write a book. Okay? And not everyone should play music. And I mean, you can do this in your privacy of your own home. I don't want to hear it. You know, these things are not, they require something that Americans really hate, which is talent. You know, talent is something you can't even mention. Because talent is something that is randomly distributed among the world population. You cannot buy it, you cannot rent it, you cannot work hard for it. You know, of course, the tragedy is that you might be an incredibly talented writer, but you're growing up in a Syrian refugee camp, we're never gonna find out. On the other hand, the people who are very privileged, they can do whatever they want, but we don't want to read it. That's a problem. So I don't know if that's true here, but the I can't even talk, you know what I mean. Making, you know, all these things political, you know, is the opposite of what should happen. I really think it's the opposite of what should happen. And I think that one thing that you see is the same bad stuff happens all over the world, you know, almost all at the same time. And, you know, this is, of course, the fault of Donald Trump, because nothing spreads faster than a bad idea. It is the most contagious thing on the planet Earth. A good idea takes centuries to be accepted. And even then, people just say, I don't know, gravity, I'm not sure. And I'm sure there are many people who voted for Donald Trump who don't believe in gravity. But, you know, you see this everywhere. I know in your politics, which I'm no expert on, you have a very similar thing that we have in the United States, that they have in all of Western Europe, you have the same thing. In every single country. You know, and it's incredibly regressive. You know, I mean, the world goes backward ever faster. Just as we have these machines that are like from science fiction, they're so advanced, they're used to spread these ancient bad ideas.
They don't only spread bad ideas, I think they've kind of established a sort of global ego.
Yeah, of course.
People have these machines and they can express themselves with these machines. So everybody thinks he's a star or thinks he has something relevant to say. And I know you were close to Andy Warhol.
No, I was not.
Well, you met him.
I saw him like every night of my life for years, but not by choice.
Tell me more about that.
I'm sorry, you know,
Tell me more about Andy Warhol. Because he was the first one to talk about this need for people to have this moment of fame, which now I think is kind of expressed through this social media thing.
Oh, for sure. You know, I mean, it would seem to me accidental that Andy was a prophet of this, but I just think that from knowing him. But it is true that one thing Andy did do that was bad, one of the things he did that was bad, was he made fame itself more famous. okay? And so when you think of like what fame is, and you think of like, what is someone writing their name on something? Either it's vandalism or it's an autograph. And it's a fine line. Okay, so kids go in the street and they spray graffiti, and it's a crime. You know, and he signs something, it makes it more valuable. I would prefer the graffiti.
You talk about fame. It seems that today fame is more important than talent.
Oh,
Fame,
more important than anything, except
fame
money.
defines everything, right?
Well, also because now anyone, it's true that what Eddie said, and believe me, he did not foresee the internet. Yes, because it used to, I mean, every 12-year-old can express themselves on TikTok or on any of these other things. Not that I've ever seen them, but I certainly hear about them. And this is the kind of thing that annoying children used to do just for their parents. You know, so that parents choose to have these children, you know, and then, you know, like, I don't know, in the United States, in families that have a lot of annoying children, they'll say, oh, and you know, let's hear, you know, her play the piano, and then not anymore people play the piano. Then you ought to sit there and listen. Oh, she sings, let's listen to her sing. And now the whole world has to listen to this annoying kid sing. And then some people say, she's really great, and she becomes a star. But not because of me.
It's, how much of that culture do you think is express itself now in also in the other arts? Do you think the other arts? Do you think the other arts are being contaminated by this that need for fame that just builds the people's ambitions? It's just being famous.
Yes, that is absolutely true, because anyone can do it. I mean, anyone can become famous in this way, I suppose. And also because the internet, there's no other medium where, you know, people count the number of people by the millions. You know, by the millions. Before the internet, very few people had any, were known to millions of people. You know, maybe a giant movie star, you know, giant rock star. But I mean, generally speaking, that was really, and also globally. You know, that's the other thing, because now things are known all over the world. And this actually is true of Netflix. You know, that's what happened to me. That's why I'm here. You know, Netflix, I heard it, of course, I've never seen it, because you need a Wi-Fi connection to your house to see it. So I've never seen it, I heard about it. I knew it was around the world, I didn't really know what that meant. The only reason I knew anything about that really was because Netflix kept postponing the thing Marty and I did. Because at one point I said, why are they postponing it? Because I was really waiting for the last payment. You know, so they didn't have to pay me, and I really need the money. Well, why isn't this? You know, Netflix is in 192 countries, which I didn't know, and I could not name you 192 countries. Yeah, so they translate every one of those languages. So that takes time, apparently since they do it consecutively. But they do it all at once, they're not all the same people. And so when it came out, it was the height of COVID. And so everyone was home watching Netflix. So COVID turned out to be great. For me. But it was, I didn't really realize what that meant. You know, like, I'm here, right? I've, you know, never spoken in Paris before. I mean, I've spoken in Paris, but privately. I can still do that. And it's the best place for it. But I was just in Stockholm, Copenhagen, I'm going to Vienna. So that never happened.